That is really, really bizarre.
Maria, this is huge.
From a mysterious century-old cabin to strange tree structures deep in the woods, Expedition Bigfoot hunters finally found Bigfoot's secret hiding place. Let's dive in. Ronnie and Maria had been exploring a jungle that had a very high likelihood of housing an elusive creature like Bigfoot. It was remote, the forests were dense, and the locals rarely went in without a genuine reason. For this reason, this would be the ideal place for an elusive creature to build a nest. To cover more ground, they used the spiral search pattern, expanding out 200 feet with each pass-through. Now in the middle of the jungle, they heard strange noises. Maria, being a scientist, was trying to pinpoint the exact location of where the strange animal voices were coming from. But the wind was picking up and there were a lot of sounds from the trees, making it difficult to know exactly where the strange sounds were coming from and what exactly was making those sounds. Regardless, they had to keep searching. But they were not ready for what they were about to discover. It was like a whole other world here. According to Maria, in a thick forest, there were many places to hide for an elusive creature as Bigfoot. Yet in this particular forest, when some of the trees fell, they created some sort of a basement, with spaces inside taller than her.
Oh, yeah.
In a forest, there are plenty of places to hide. But in this forest, when those trees fall, they create nearly a basement underneath them, where some of these spaces are taller than I am. Anything large could definitely hide under there.
Anything with the intelligence to spot these bases could make a home for themselves. Bryce had spoken to the locals before Maria and Ronnie went into the forest, and the witness had told him that the government had taken control of the jungle after they found nests. For the Expedition Bigfoot crew, aside from finding an actual Bigfoot, the nest would be a primary objective. From Maria's scientific perspective, a nest would give them a lot of information. This is because, traditionally, nests were the only reason scientists learned so much about western land gorillas in the wild before they were able to make any contact with them. In a nest, they could extract DNA, which would give them data on what animal was there, how many of them were there, and also their relationships. Knowing this, Maria knew that if they could find just one, then they would be so close to finding evidence of Bigfoot. As they continued exploring, Ronnie couldn't help but notice the similarity between the other Bigfoot jungles they had been in and the one they were currently in. It was so quiet. In a jungle like this, one would expect to hear birds chirping and movement from other animals. Yet there was none. It had an eerie, quiet vibe, and this only made it an ideal spot for Bigfoot to dwell. But then, the silence was interrupted. It was definitely a big animal, and the sound was coming from every direction. Determined to explore more, Ronnie and Maria kept moving, and that's when they saw it. According to Maria, the sound was coming from that direction, and so this was a point of interest for them. It looked old, all right, but what was it?
It's like coming from every direction. As we're walking down this trail, I start to hear what sounds like a large animal. But the wind is picking up, there are lots of sounds that the trees are making, and it's all very difficult to discern what that sound is or where exactly it's coming from.
This huge structure was built out of redwood trees, and it seemed like it had been there for at least 100 years. No matter how old it was definitely a habitat for a big creature since animals are highly adaptable. At this point, even though they had not yet bumped into a Bigfoot nest, this structure could still give them more information that they could also get from a nest. However, as excited as they were, the structure gave them the creeps. As they went around it, Maria kept hearing strange sounds coming from a specific direction. It was like a weird scream. Knowing that Bigfoot made such kinds of noises, Ronnie suggested using their Bigfoot recordings to try and draw the creature to them rather than trying to find it in its own habitat. And so, later that night, Maria and Ronnie came back. Since they did not know what to expect, stealth was their best strategy to spot any creature lurking near the structure. With Maria getting in position, Ronnie was getting ready to broadcast a Bigfoot call from a high vantage point atop a ridgeline, while Maria looked for any sign of movement from below. The die had been cast, and all they had to do was wait. And then it happened. They got a response from Maria's area. As creepy as that was, this is not the only time the crew has found strange structures in Bigfoot territory. Bigfoot Treehouse. As they searched the woods in one of their expeditions, Bryce and Maria discovered a massive tree structure that they could not explain. Although they had found similar structures in their previous expeditions, like the one in Alaska, this one was way much bigger than the rest. While Maria thought that it was weird, Bryce thought it was amazing. They noticed the intentional arrangement of the trees to form something that looked like a shelter. It was 15 feet high, almost big enough to be called a Bigfoot house. But that's not all. The top of the structure that connected all the trees was intentionally and carefully woven by someone or something.
This tree structure could not have been built by just anyone or anything. There's about a dozen logs, all weighing 150, 200 pounds, with this ornate ornamentation laid across the top. It would have taken a crew of men to put this thing together.
After a deeper examination of the tree structure, Bryce came up with the theory that no ordinary animal could have done this. In his expertise, this tree structure could not have been built by just anyone or anything. This is because there were about a dozen logs weighing around 150 to 200 pounds, with ornate intentional ornamentation laid across. To Bryce, it would have taken a group of men to put the strange structure together. So what or who really built these structures, and for what? Having seen similar structures in their previous expeditions in different parts of the world, they were now joining the dots. At this point, Bryce was very optimistic about this finding, but Maria didn't seem to think that the structure was that significant. Although their point of view conflicted, they agreed that the structure was a good place to find DNA. If the structure was built and did not exist naturally, then whoever or whatever built it left some evidence of themselves. As they searched for anything they could use for DNA tests, Bryce argued that if the structure was built by someone or something, then it must have had a purpose. In Bryce's perspective, the tree structure was a Bigfoot boundary marker to mark nesting territory, and they were right in the middle of it. Seeing Bryce's excitement, Maria interjected by acknowledging that based on Bryce's analysis, the structure was indeed fascinating, but she urged him not to hurry to come to any conclusion. Typical Maria. A scientist takes a logical approach to gathering data and evidence of pseudoscience beliefs. This was her role in the group, analyzing pseudoscience data and presenting it in a way acceptable to mainstream science. In order to do that, Maria believed that the crew had to speak the language of their critics and provide logical proof of the existence of Bigfoot. For this reason, Maria was always careful and hesitant about using the word evidence to refer to strange findings. To her, this tree structure was not evidence of anything, but it reminded her of a tree structure that looked similar to the one they had found in Kentucky. And Kentucky was an interesting place, since the crew had gotten some of their most interesting DNA results.
I'm always really careful and hesitant not to use the word evidence, because to me, this is not evidence of anything. But what it did remind me of instantly, though, was that tree structure that we had found in Kentucky. And that's where we had gotten some of our most interesting DNA results.
Understanding where Maria was coming from, Bryce agreed, and they decided to look for more clues. Maria chose to look for potential samples from underneath the structure, while Bryce took a closer look on the outside for anything else that might have served as a clue to their research. The area around the structure provided the team with a lot of potential samples that they could check later on, and this made them very hopeful about their investigation. According to Maria, if the findings in an expedition are isolated and far apart, they do not end up being so significant. However, when finding multiple samples in multiple locations in multiple investigations, one must ask oneself whether these pieces of evidence are part of a bigger puzzle. As they searched the structures for any clues, Bryce found some hair samples and called Maria to check them out. After obtaining the samples, Bryce expressed his interest in taking the hair to the lab for DNA examination. This structure was turning out to be quite a strange one. Not only was it weird looking, but it also had multiple samples of hair all over and around it. These findings increased their hunger for the truth, and so, to get more clues, they decided to go deeper into the forest and explore the riverbanks, a common place to find. Having found no visual evidence, they decided to use a more technological approach. Creepy stalkers in the dead of the night. Bryce had set up a base in the forest to survey everything around him. In the tent he had erected, he set up every possible machine a scientist could get his hands on so as to get as much information as he could. On top of that, knowing that he was in a dangerous, unexplored zone, he had taken every measure to make sure that he wasn't detected by any creature of the night. But how would he evade detection in a tent? The tent he was using was not like any other. Its fabric was made in a way that it could block all the EMF frequencies generated by the research equipment, making it a giant frequency cage. With the EMF blocked, anything inside the tent was basically invisible to creatures sensitive to frequency changes. But that's not all he had. Bryce had set up thermal cams all around the tent to spot heat signatures at night and infrared cameras to see in the dark. These cameras were spread out in all directions to cover more ground and see anything that would pose a threat to anyone in the tent. While the cameras covered the visual aspect, Bryce had set up parabolic microphones to detect the slightest sounds made by any creature that might be lurking in the woods. At this point, he must have been feeling like Batman in his secret bat cave, but this time, he was looking for evidence of Bigfoot. But he was not as undetectable as he thought.
Right in this area, making us invisible. I've got thermal set up, I've got infrared, I've got north, south, east, and west covered. And not only that, but I've also set up a parabolic microphone faced in that direction.
As he waited for something to happen, his parabolic microphone detected something. He started hearing strange noises near his tent. Although he had not obtained any visual data, Bryce knew that something was definitely lurking in the woods, and so he listened closely, hoping that whatever was causing the sound would at least be captured in the visual footage. Judging by the nature of the sound he heard, Bryce knew that the creature making them had to be large in size, but the fact that he could not spot it on any of the cameras gave Bryce the creeps, since he felt like he was being watched by something he could not see. For this reason, he kept his eyes peeled, looking at the video feed from all the screens. To try and reduce his fear, Bryce hypothesized that whatever was taunting him was a bear or a deer. Unlucky for him, his survival instincts could not let him be blinded to the possibility that an intelligent predator was onto him. A creature intelligent enough to hide behind trees as it watched its prey. And then it happened. As he looked through the cameras, one of them caught a fast flash of light, signifying that something had run through it. Before he could make sense of what he had seen, Bryce saw another light a bit further in the distance. At this point, he knew that his visual detection equipment was definitely working, but what he could not help but wonder was whether the strange, elusive creatures were surrounding his tent. Before he could comprehend what was making the noise, he saw it. Hiding behind a tree a few meters away from the tent, his thermogram spotted something moving. Inside the tent, Bryce heard more sounds outside and could see the head of a creature peeking through the trees from the thermal camera as he tried to monitor all the equipment in his periphery. As he watched, he saw something swipe through his camera, and at this point, he started to get the feeling that there was more than one of these creatures observing him. Although well hidden, Bryce knew that if something managed to find him, he would be in trouble since Bigfoot had unpredictable behavior, especially when one came too close to its territory.
As I'm trying to monitor all this equipment, out of my periphery, I see something swipe through my camera, and I'm starting to get the feeling that there's more than one of these creatures observing me. If something came this way and already passed that camera, and something else just came by this, there's two.
Bryce was right in the middle of its home, and knowing this sent waves of fear throughout his body. To make matters worse, the only power his tent had over any predator was the fact that it was undetectable. If any creature detected him and attacked, the tent would not save him. But being in fear did not stop the creatures from making more sounds. Then, all of a sudden, one of his cameras caught something coming out of the trees. It was something big, and he decided to follow the heat signal to get a better visual. He quickly got out of the tent, and the darkness in the woods swallowed him. Although he had a flashlight, he still struggled to see. He could not spot the creature. It was as if the creature had disappeared as soon as it heard the commotion of him rushing out of his tent. His heart was racing, and he was still pretty fearful, feeling like he was prey in the darkness. Seeing that he could not catch the creature by storming and running after it, he decided to try a new strategy. For this, he called for reinforcements. A new strategy. Instead of chasing the creature, they decided to let the creature come to them. But for this strategy to work, they needed bait. Russell decided to go. As he surveyed the woods, Bryce and other crew members were tracking his every move with the camera. At first, everything was good. The surveillance array looked good, and they could clearly see Russell. Seeing that they were not getting much action, Russell decided to walk further into the woods, and then it appeared. From behind the trees up the hill, they saw a creature moving fast towards Russell, and it was not Maria. Seeing this, Bryce and the team quickly radioed Russell, who, upon receiving the message, asked for guidance from the team since it was hard for him to see anything. The creature was coming from the east. It was about 50 yards away, and it was closing in fast. While following the trail, Russell heard some noises. Something had definitely been there, and they had left signs around, not to mention a pretty strong stench. The stench was familiar to the one the crew had encountered in their Alaskan expedition. With these signs, Russell knew that they were in the presence of Bigfoot.
Russ for Bryce.
Russell, I got you loud and clear, man.
Something just broke a stick out in front of me.
Less than 100 yards. How close am I?
If you stay that course, you should be able to intercept.
Copy that. Moving in.
The closer he got to where Bryce had told him that the target was, the weirder and louder the noises got. But Russell was not about to lose his target. Knowing that by now, the creature ought to have been really close, Russell went in the direction of the weird noises. But as he got closer, he heard something break a branch about 100 yards from him. After asking how far from the creature, Bryce informed him that if he stayed that course, he would be able to intercept it. Hearing this, Russell decided to move towards where the creature was thought to be. On the other side of the mountain, Mireya was following a heat signal they had seen a bit earlier. Bryce did some surveillance for her, and he noticed not one, but two different heat signatures. The woods were dark, and it was raining heavily. This made seeing really difficult for Mireya, and she could only rely on the visual feedback from Bryce. Mireya got closer to the zone she had been told about to get more information. Although they were trying their best to get the information, the weather conditions made it very difficult for them to see anything. But there was definitely something close to Mireya. When Bryce asked her if she could see anything, Mireya said that she could not see or hear anything due to the weather, but the situation was getting worse. Bryce and the surveillance team were losing that other signature between the trees due to the fog, and for this reason, they told Mireya to continue walking in the same direction and that she would be able to see the creature. To be honest, this was a risky move for Mireya since she had two targets, and one had gone missing. If that's not scary enough, she was walking straight towards where the creature had last been spotted. Using a flashlight, Mireya was trying to see if there was any movement in the trees or in the direction she was moving. But there was one problem. Everything was working against them. The area she was walking in was extremely steep and extra slippery because of the rain, and to make matters worse, she could not hear whatever was going on around her clearly due to the noise caused by the rain. It's like she was going in blind.
Well, I'm trying to see if anything that's moving might be moving up in this direction. Problem is all the elements are really working against us right now. This is incredibly steep, it's slippery, and we can't really hear as things move through the forest because of all the rain and the hail.
After searching the whole night, neither Russell nor Mireya saw anything. Whenever they got close, the creature would disappear as if avoiding direct contact. But why stay so elusive? The following day, the team went to search for any evidence of footprints and to check out an area where Russell had spotted multiple footprints of what seemed to be a Bigfoot family. During this expedition, one of the most thrilling discoveries the team made was finding several sets of footprints, some noticeably larger than others. This finding hinted that there could be more than just one creature nearby. It even raised the possibility that they had come across a family group or a social pack of creatures living together in the area. Seeing this, Russell and his team were thrilled. These tiny tracks suggested that they might have found signs of a baby Bigfoot. This idea filled them with excitement, as the discovery of a young one could help them learn so much more about Bigfoot's daily life, how it grows, and how it interacts with others. It felt like they were one step closer to understanding this mysterious creature in a completely new way. On top of that, the discovery of multiple sets of footprints led the team to speculate about Bigfoot's social structure. The team spent time discussing whether these mysterious creatures might live alone or in family groups. They wondered if the smaller footprints could have been left by a young Bigfoot and what that might mean for how Bigfoot raises its young. Could this creature actually be social, like some other primates, forming close groups and possibly even raising young together? This new idea opened up a whole new way of thinking about Bigfoot, making the investigation even more exciting and complex.